I'm going to tell you my problem with reward-based training. The problem is it's much harder to do than just making the dog do something. Good reward-based training is far less intuitive, and it requires a deeper toolbox and a more robust skill set. Now, I don't mean to say that using compulsion is easy, because it isn't. If you want to do it well, you've got to be skillful. Skill equals skill. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. Skillful training is skillful dog training. That's not what I mean. Good compulsion is hard to do. What I mean is that with compulsion, if somebody lacks a degree of skill, they can usually make up the difference with more pressure. The scalpel might be desirable, but you can often get away with the club. And when I began 30 years ago, I was pretty much in that position. I had a pretty limited understanding of behavior in general and very little understanding about dogs specifically, but I was effective. Within 6 months of taking my first professional training job, I was getting referrals from vets that were as far as 30 miles away, and these were not people that I'd networked with, that I'd met with before. They were just seeing the results. Their clients were coming in with better dogs, and they started sending people my way. So I never thought maybe I wasn't qualified. Obviously I was, right? I mean, the thing is, sometimes I had to do things that were really distasteful. And I knew that, but I thought they were necessary, because my job was to keep the dog from taking that last trip to the vet. And so nothing I could do was crueler than letting that dog be put down because there was something I didn't choose to do, something I could have done that I didn't do. So if that meant I had to add more pressure, so be it. Right? One of the things I would tell my clients was, listen, I wouldn't let somebody cut my dog's leg off for fun, but if it was necessary to stop cancer, 100% I would do that. So if we have to do intense things to the dog to save their life, that is okay. We would do that in other medical situations, other life-threatening situations, so we can do it here. And I got a lot of mileage out of that argument, but it never occurred to me that the reason I had to do that stuff was because I was bad at what I was doing. I just thought I wasn't applying enough pressure. It never occurred to me that maybe I was applying it poorly, or that I was applying it unnecessarily and causing more trouble, which turned out to be the case. But at that time, by every metric I could think of, I was successful. Owners were happy. Dogs were well behaved. Referrals were rolling in. I was pretty good at convincing the dog to choose the path I wanted him to take. If it was sometimes ugly, it was effective. Right? So there was no reason to question it. Now, obviously, eventually I did, or I wouldn't be making this video. But my point is, I didn't need to understand much to be successful. I didn't have to be particularly skillful or knowledgeable. What I needed was an unearned sense of confidence and a willingness to use as much pressure as was necessary. And I believed that that was virtuous. Where others flinched, I held firm. And even though it hurt my heart to cause distress to the dog, I took that pain for the dog's sake. And I did the things the dog owners would not do. Again, for the dog's sake. Look, I'm not proud of any of this. But at that time, I was. That was virtuous. I was the one who would do the hard things that no one else would do. And I was saving dogs' lives. So when I look back now and I think about it, it's hard to think about. Like that kid, he was so confident in his mission and so certain in his methods. He's like a stranger to me. Like now I look at my skills and all the tools I've added to my toolbox and the layers of understanding that I've had to go out and get and otherwise accumulated. Like I don't recognize that level of confidence and that level of certainty. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am still confident in my mission. It's not the same mission, but I'm still confident in my mission. And in a way, I'm still certain of my methods. I know they work, and I know I do good work. However, unlike that kid, I'm just not satisfied because I understand getting better is a moral duty. And so I've reinvented my approach more times than I can count, and each iteration, I hope, brings me closer to truly understanding dogs and their behavior, but I've still got a long way to go. right? But old ideas get discarded and new ideas adopted as I see new evidence, or I have new experience, or I just have a little flash of insight and something goes, aha, that's what you've been trying to figure out for the past 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years. And some days it's beautiful and I have those moments of clarity, and other days, a lot of other days, I feel like I'm missing the real story, that's going on a few layers down the rabbit hole, and I'm just scratching the surface. So I'm happy with my work, but I'm also frustrated with the knowledge that the things I don't know are bigger than the things I do know. And understanding is a moral requirement, because the challenge is crafting the best possible experience for the dog and the owner, and that is incredibly complex. I understand and I know that the better I am at getting the dog to want to do something, the less I have to rely on making them do it. So the goal is to understand how to best motivate the dog, how to create desire. And that's really complex stuff. And it has forced me to learn new concepts and more strategies than I would have ever imagined before. My timing, my read on the dog, my communication with clients, all of that has to be better. Because as I said before, there's very little about building motivation correctly that is intuitive. In fact, often the most obvious way to do it is going to lead to problems down the line. And the more dedicated I became to not just falling back on because I said so, the more I forced myself to get better. And when I came to the end of my knowledge, and that's happened quite a bit, I had to go out and get more. I had to read a new book or go talk to another trainer or learn something else. If you're not good with rewards, you just can't brute force your way through it. You can try using higher value rewards if you want, and that sometimes works, but if the dog doesn't get it, you can't just keep feeding him until he does. This is one of the reasons why people think reinforcement training doesn't work, is because it's harder to do well. You have to fix the misunderstanding. With compulsion, it's possible to just keep upping the pressure until the dog figures it out. I don't mean that this is good training. Good trainers don't do that. But a bad trainer can, and they usually will. And the sad part is they probably don't even know that's what they're doing. I didn't. I did it for years and I didn't know that was doing it. The easier we make it for the dog, the harder we make it for ourselves. The easier we make it for ourselves, the harder we make it for the dog. So my choice and my mission is to keep making it easier for the dog. Yes, reward-based training is harder. Absolutely. Requires more skill, it requires more energy, it requires more planning, a more strategy, but it's worth it because it's better for the dog. It's better for the dog owner. So that's what I do. That's all I have to say today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.